Hey everybody, it's me, the Einstein of Wall Street, from the balcony at the New York Stock Exchange. I'm so excited to be here today. You know, every day, every week, we bring you things in food, finance, fashion, fun. I bring you people to tell their story, right? That's what it's all about. We're here, you know, they call it the humans of New York. These are the humans of the stock exchange. I try to give you a breakdown on what has changed people's lives and how sometimes it relates to what goes on here. Obviously, food. If you go back to one of the first companies, I think, that was listed here on the stock exchange. I just told my wonderful new friend that back in 1650, the beginning of what was called then the auction market, where brokers would come down here and they would go to the port, East River and Hudson River, where products and commodities would come from all over the world and come, whether it was wheat, tobacco, spices, they came, and that was the beginning of this business. So look, for me, food is one of the biggest things in my life. I actually was in the food business for 30 years while I traded here on the floor of the stock exchange. So it was a big part of my life. But I'm here to introduce you to Alexis Decker of New York City, but
gluten-free.
New York City, but gluten-free. Now, hi, welcome.
Hi.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. You are now in the last bastion of capitalism here, you know, and if we think about it, there's 3,800 companies listed here. Many of them are in the food business, right?
Yes.
The food business has exploded over the last probably 25, 30 years. I mean, when I was growing up, and I'm not that old, I keep prefacing that because I was feeling old for a little while. I'm actually feeling pretty young. So, Hormel was a company that, look, there have been a lot of takeovers within gourmet space, right? If you think about it, when I was growing up, you know, I lived on the Upper West Side of New York, and, you know, you had a butcher shop, you had a small grocery store. I mean, things were nothing like they are now.
Oh, no.
And you've seen this huge explosion of not only the food business and new gourmet products, and people, you know, their whole lives have been around food, to the point where today there are probably thousands of pages on social media about food. There are people taking pictures of their meals, right?
Yeah.
Which has become this crazy obsession. But I think one of the biggest catalysts of all that is that people have developed over the last 5, 15, 20 years, you'll tell me better than I know, a lot of allergies to food, okay? Your specialty is gluten-free, and it's been big part of my life and my family's life, because I think so many people grew up with stomach issues.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knew what was going on. We know that doctors just love to, if they don't know what to do with something, they just tell you it's stress, or they tell you there's something wrong with you, but they've never been able to tie it down. And so what's happened over the last number of years is the doctors, and I would probably say allergists or people within the pharma industry, have identified, whether it's GMO, whether it's the way we've altered the food that we're eating, whether it's our bodies have changed and our immune systems are completely in disarray, but there's been this incredible explosion of allergies against food.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And whether it's vegan, whether it's gluten-free, dairy-free, all the different things that our bodies suddenly, after millions of years, right? I mean, we go back to, I don't know, cavemen. I'm not sure what cavemen were eating, but hunting and gathering and
I don't
nuts
think they
and
knew
meat.
either.
They don't know, and I don't. They're not around to be able to ask them how their bellies were. But anyway, so Alexis has a Instagram page, which is spectacular, and there are lots of them. And look, I try to identify people who have a great story to tell and have a really good sense of color, of food, photography, and so that's why I brought you here to tell your story, and I'm really happy you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Good.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So tell me, give me a little bit about your beginning and how you ended up where you are today.
So I was always very sick as a child. I couldn't gain weight. I always had a lot of fluid and inflammation. They thought I had cystic fibrosis actually growing up. I was always sick. I got pneumonia every other year. I got strep throat so much they removed my tonsils. Was still getting strep throat all the time. So then one day I just ate a breakfast bar at summer camp and I couldn't breathe. I was in so much pain out of nowhere. It was the weirdest thing. And every time I ate anything, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And this was right in 2008, right after, the economy went down. My dad lost his job. So we were also moving to South Carolina. Okay. So my family was on this road trip to South Carolina, and we were eating at Cracker Barrel, these diners.
Oh, these amazing high-class places.
Yeah, and I would have to run out because I was brown bag in pain, hyperventilating. And initially, they misdiagnosed me with a wheat allergy because they just like to kind of, I don't know.
They label stuff.
Yeah,
They just,
medicine,
they don't know.
it's just kind of like, oh, let's Band-Aid it and not really getting down to the solution. But celiac also wasn't a very widely known thing then. Not saying that doctors didn't know about it, but it wasn't so common. You know, the average person didn't know what gluten-free meant back then.
Exactly.
I would say it at restaurants and people would stare at me
Up
like I
until
just said something
recently,
offensive.
Exactly.
And my mom was like, oh, so I just ate wet lettuce at every meal I had.
Now let me interrupt you for a second because we can actually break it down.
Yeah.
There are people who have a sensitivity to gluten.
Yes.
And then there are people who are actually celiac.
Yes.
Break it down. What's the difference?
So
celiac is a disease or a syndrome?
An autoimmune disease.
Okay.
So basically, the layer of your intestine
The inner lining, which is where you absorb food and nutrients.
So it gets destroyed if you have celiac and you keep eating gluten. So that's why I was actually so underweight. My body was not absorbing anything that went into it.
Correct.
So autoimmune disease, everyone has completely different symptoms, but your immune system starts attacking itself.
I'm going to interrupt you again. Gluten.
Yes.
What is gluten?
So it's kind of difficult to explain. So it's essentially a protein, and it gives, like, for example, bread and products like that.
Okay.
Almost like its texture.
Okay. And its ability to stick together.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But it's basically wheat, barley, malt. Those are like the main rye. Those are like the main kind
So
of.
those are
things
grains that
make it up.
contain gluten.
Yes.
Do they naturally contain gluten, or are they being added to make the product?
They naturally contain
have it. Okay.
There are actually certain products that you can remove the gluten from. I know there are a lot of wheat-based products out there now that they take the gluten out. But yeah, a sensitivity is a lot different. A lot of people don't have gluten for other reasons.
Right.
I have a lot of friends that have Crohn's disease and other autoimmune disorders.
Right, which is an inflammation of the inner lining of the intestine. Everything.
Yeah.
What I've learned, I'm going to interrupt you a little bit because it's really fascinating and everybody needs to know this. It's becoming way more mainstream, but it's still one of the most undiagnosed and wrongly diagnosed syndromes in a lot of ways because. I mean, the question is, have our bodies changed and we become unable to digest or assimilate gluten? Have the foods changed the way that they alter the chemical makeup of the wheat? That's one of the biggest things that's being GMO and altered, right?
Yeah.
So, and whether it's for financial reasons, there's a bigger production, whether it's to do with the pesticides, something changed. Because my gut is that in 1910 and 20, I know our diets were different. Over the last 4 or 5 centuries, our diets have surely been different. And that's not always been the case. There are a lot of things like autism, for instance. There are a lot of other autoimmune diseases and mental illnesses that suddenly came onto the market. Were they not there and they showed up now? Or did we just notice them? Or did we try and identify them? And so this is one of the biggest ones because, I'm a son of a doctor and I've had health issues my whole life, also major. I had inflammatory bowel disease and diverticulitis. And, my brother died of pancreatic cancer from Crohn's disease.
Sorry.
So all this, it turns out the more now that I study health and anti-aging and all this other stuff, everything happens in the biome.
Oh, it all
right?
starts
It all
in the gut.
starts
Yeah,
there. And if
mental
your gut
health,
is not
physical health, everything, emotional health.
Right.
All of it is right here. And if that's
So if
not
that's
doing
not
well,
right,
this isn't either.
it messes up the whole
Yeah.
thing. Okay, so we've established there's celiac and there's gluten sensitivity. Clearly the food changed. And I know that because we're seeing it too. And I've done some reading up on this because my daughter is actually celiac. I am gluten sensitive. And I probably am celiac too because it's just, anyway.
Yeah, it is genetic, I will say.
Yeah, it is genetic? Okay, well that makes sense. But also when you study some of these larger companies, at one point, food companies became global farms, right? As opposed to the old home farming where you'd grow wheat and corn for your the neighborhood or the country. And now a lot of the farms in the Midwest have become these massive global corporate entities. And obviously the bottom line for them is money.
Oh yeah.
And if they can produce more, I keep interrupting you, sorry. If they can produce more food and it's more efficient and all that, they don't really care about the implications on people's health.
Monsanto
And that's a problem.
comes right to
There
mind.
you go. Well, doesn't
Right
it just
to
pops
mind.
right up there?
Yep, that name immediately in my head.
And I don't know if it's been taken over or merged, but I traded that stock for decades down here on the floor.
Yeah.
We're not going to beef them up, but we should. But let's go back. Okay, so we have celiac sensitivity and actual and the disease. Is it a disease or a syndrome or how?
Yeah,
how
it's
is
a
it?
disease. And going back to what you said too, so for example, if I went to Italy as a celiac, I can't eat gluten, but people who just get really sick when they eat it and they don't have celiac, when they go to Europe, they can eat it and they are fine.
Why?
Because
those foods aren't altered.
Yeah,
Right.
Europe
The flour.
has a lot tougher regulations on their food,
yeah.
and they care a lot more about what goes into our body. And now I think it's become such a hot topic in the past 5 years, where people in the United States are starting to be like, why does every other country regulate this and we don't? Like, we should maybe look into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people have developed sensitivities because what we're putting in our body is not actually what it's being advertised as. So it's
And we are
really bad
what
for you.
we are what we eat.
Yeah.
Right. And so okay. So we've established that. We've established that something major has changed in the food and the way it's made and how it affects our body. Our immune systems are under attack. Clearly, right? And that's probably one of the biggest functions. So tell me about your journey on this. So you were sick growing up. You had a problem, and then when did you? And look, you're at the perfect age where it's, thank God, right? Because I mean, I probably spent 20, 30 years of my life having belly issues without a diagnosis. You were able to figure it out and come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And thank God that the business is followed suit with you.
I know. So I was diagnosed in 2010, and actually right after I was diagnosed, they figured out that my mom, who's in her 40s, she got tested and she ended up having it too, and it explained all of her health problems. And so, as I said, it is a genetic thing. So then my brothers got tested too. I have two brothers. One of them had it, and the other didn't. He doesn't have the gene for it either. So being that it is genetic, it gets passed down, and it doesn't necessarily get passed down to everyone. And some people can have the celiac gene living dormant in their body for their entire life, and nothing triggers it. But usually a big stress to the body or life event triggers it. So actually right now, more people than ever are getting diagnosed because a lot of people who had COVID, it kicked it into their body, and that's a triggering event. So what happens is usually it has to be something major. I know a lot of people that got a tick and got Lyme disease, and that autoimmune immediately just kicks in everything that you're predisposed to. So the celiac gene kicks in for them. Same thing. COVID was such a unexpected and unusual stress on the body that most people that had the celiac gene had COVID and then they got celiac. I know my roommate's sister, childbirth did it. It's just a big stress on the body. So you could have it sitting in your body dormant for the rest of your life, or one random thing could trigger it. I will never know what mine was. I wish I could.
Yeah.
I think about it often.
It's not going to help you at that point either. But you think about it, so there are things that will affect our whole immune system. Those viruses, like Lyme, and I almost died from Lyme. I got it, Benny was 2, so it was about 28 years ago. I came home after a July 4th weekend, and I was bleeding internally, and I had 106 temperature. They had no idea. My father was a big deal doctor.
Jeez.
They had no idea what was going on. We found one of the top infectious disease guys in the world. The guy, his name is Dr. Green, who actually was the first guy to diagnose AIDS, in fact.
Oh, wow.
And he came into the hospital July 4th weekend. My father flew him in, blah, blah, blah. Fancy story, privileged story, but saved my life.
Yeah.
And he said, where do you spend your weekends and how do you like your steak? And I had been through 30 doctors already, and none of them had been able to figure it out. And so he came back 20 minutes later, and he says, you have a disease called babesiosis. Babesiosis is the first, prior to Lyme, it was the disease that killed all the cattle in the Bible.
Oh, wow.
Okay, which went on to become, and at that point, 90 people had died of, there were 100 cases, 90 of them had died of babesiosis. You can actually read about it. It was a cattle-based disease, and we also, that's another thing too, there are a lot of diseases that cross over from animals to humans, and a lot of these hypersensitive ones. But Lyme and gluten-free, these are things that lay dormant in your system, and as you said, that get catalyzed by a major global event or a personal traumatic event. We know that stress is one of the biggest things that shakes the body up. Okay, so I'm excited for you. So let's get down to Instagram for a second. So look, we're in this wonderful era. It's 2025. Social media is on the rise, right? And so many people, look, I have numerous social media pages. I talk about finance. I talk about food. I talk about fashion, all of the 3 Fs and fun, the 4 Fs. Let's go from there. You have taken something that obviously means something to you. Obviously, social media is a funny thing. Some people just take pictures of their pets, but you're taking something that's important to you, and you've done really wonderful, and that's why I'm here to help promote it. So it's New York City, but gluten-free.
Yes.
Okay, and tell me about that journey.
So I originally started it just because I am passionate about going out to eat and food and things like that. I think in New York City, it's a part of our culture. Like, it's what people do. Dining out is a big thing in our city, and I obviously lived with these crazy dietary restrictions my whole life, and this is like my playground. I got here, and the gluten-free food is like none other that I've seen. So obviously, really quickly, I realized, oh my gosh, like there's so much out there for me. This is so exciting.
Suddenly, I can go out for dinner.
Yeah.
Because it's so, you have no idea. I mean, if you've experienced this, you know it. Some people are still like that. You know, think everybody, that you're acting like a baby. But you have no idea if you have it. When you eat something that's got gluten in it, it will take your body over for 48 hours and destroy you.
I get like flu symptoms. I start like cold sweats, everything. But yeah, so I was used to dining hall food and, you know, sandy pizza crusts and things like that. I come here. It's great.
So New York's on the rise, right?
Yeah.
There are gluten-free restaurants, there's gluten-free food.
Oh yeah.
There's sections in stores.
I think the best city in the United States for gluten-free is definitely New York. But so I started just posting photos on my page for fun. A year ago today, if you saw me, I had 1,000 followers, and all of them were my friends, just being nice and supporting me. And then really quickly, I realized that there was a kind of a market for this information. A lot of restaurants don't advertise on their menu online that they have gluten-free stuff. And then I would post a photo, and someone would message me and be like, "Wait, how did you like know about this?" So I realized that there was kind of a market for it, and the social media food space in New York City is very oversaturated. There's a lot of the same stuff.
It's crowded.
So that's kind of why, like, to me, I didn't start it seriously. But then I realized, oh, people actually are taking the information I have, and it's changing their lives. And I was getting a lot of messages like, "Thank you so much for like posting this, like blah, blah, blah. I just got diagnosed. Like, do you have any tips?" All this stuff. So quickly I realized that I could take this to the next level. I personally am the type of person that I can't be bad at something. So as soon as I decided it was serious, it was serious.
Good.
So I started.
And it is, and that's why we're here. Because
Yeah.
for me, I think it's one of the best pages out there.
Thank you. Well, I'll never forget when you messaged me and you were like, "You girls are a hoot," and I was like, "That's such a compliment."
I thought there was a whole team.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
such
there was
a
a whole
compliment.
team.
It's all me. I do all my own outreach. I do my own editing, brand stuff, everything. So. But yeah, since then, I just keep continuing to make these videos. I watched actually a video the other day that I posted a year ago, and it's so funny how like refined my style has gotten. Yeah, because you have to keep up with things, you know. Right now, the Instagram algorithm just changed, and a lot of creators are like fighting it because, you know, we make these awesome videos and you spend hours on it and then no one sees it.
You could be hitting your head up against the wall.
All because of one hashtag that you use or something silly like that. But it's been really cool. I've met a lot of cool people, and I've, you know, had a lot of people reach out to me and truly like be appreciative of my recommendations. I've people message me from Australia being like, "I'm planning a trip. Like, can you please help me?" So, and it's nice too because I have the knowledge. I ask all the questions. You know,
how's the response been in restaurants?
Pretty good. Restaurants love that, you know, I'm able to share things for them because obviously it's expensive for them to have, and especially having the space to prepare things safely for people in a kitchen
cross-contamination
is hard. So I appreciate all the restaurants that are going out of their way to do this, and I want to spread the word to everybody because, again, not everyone's as comfortable as me calling on the phone, doing all these things. So I want to make sure that everyone has the info out there and they understand that, you know, okay, Carbone is like the coolest reservation in New York City, and no one would expect that gluten-free stuff is there. So I want to share the word.
Like a good gluten-free pasta like Saint-Ambroise, actually, which is a restaurant. Have you been to that? You know,
I haven't.
So they apparently have one of the best gluten-free pastas in New York City.
I gotta try it because pasta is my favorite food.
Yeah, and look, pasta is all gluten.
Yeah.
And so it's, I mean, I have not had a bowl of pasta in 20 years. So that's it. So you're also, your D, I forgot what the word is, but your D, what is the word? Stigmatizing it, because people actually, I don't go out to, look, I'm allergic to garlic.
That's a tough one.
So that is the worst allergy on the face of the earth because it's in everything.
Yeah.
So I literally have 2 restaurants for the last 15 years that I go to because I know the owner and I know they're not going to. One is sushi, one is Italian. It was the first bowl of pasta I was actually able to have linguine with white clam sauce, which is my favorite, which is all garlic.
Yeah.
And they made it that was how I did the test. If you can make this with no garlic and it tastes good, I'll come here. And I went there for 4 years every Wednesday night. So, but also people are, you're anxious to go into a restaurant and be that pain in the ass at the end of the table who's going. So my daughter is, as much as I love her, I'm gluten-free, I'm dairy-free, it's cross-contamination.
You have to ask all the questions because you never know. Like,
and nobody takes you seriously.
Yeah.
Right? I've gone in and had it asked for garlic allergy, it will kill me. And they'll bring me a plate, it will be full of garlic, and I'll go, you've got to change this, I need a new meal. And they'll scrape the garlic off and put it on the side and give the plate back to me.
Yeah,
it's like nobody takes this shit
still
seriously.
In there. Yeah, it's it.
Right. So I'm really happy about that. Let's talk about how it's growing. Look, and food blogs and food Instagram pages are amazing. Do you ever watch your competition?
Yeah, I don't really consider anyone to be competition because I think either people are posting regular food that's not just gluten-free,
right.
so
everyone's spreading
the good word, and then I think that anyone that's sharing something for people with dietary restrictions is helping out our whole community. I've made a lot of friends through this, honestly. I've made one of my best friends now. I've made, because she has a food page too, so we go on these adventures to restaurants together, and it's nice. But I watch everything because I want to see what's happening, what's changing, and it's nice too to riff off of, oh, someone did this in a video, I really like that.
That's what I
want to do something like that. Yeah.
It's also, look, I love that. Not that you're right, not to think of it as competition, but to see everybody's doing this whole social media thing is an industry and a platform that is exploding. And there are people, look, and also there's the algo as you described, and it's really hard to know all the cutting edge things that change on a dime. You're not getting a notification by Instagram saying we just changed this, and if you want to optimize, do this. It's not like that.
The guy Adam that actually kind of runs Instagram, he posts videos with tips every day to creators on what to do to fight the algorithm. But to me, it's almost disheartening because it's like, why is it not that simple that a video is either good or it's not good? Why do we have to do all these crazy things? Like, you're taking the fun away from it. And
I agree.
We're your creators, reward us for being active on your app. Don't make everything jumping through hoops.
I agree 100%. So let's talk about traveling around the country. So you've been very New York City centric. Right?
Yes, I've been a little bit of everywhere, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so obviously LA, I would imagine San Francisco, it's gluten-free towns, right? People are big foodies there. Have you noticed that, or?
So the places that I've been to Florida. So Miami was really good for it.
Yeah.
LA was also really good for it. I was in San Diego, that was good for it. But actually, I was in Vancouver in September, and that was one of the best cities that I've seen for gluten-free ever.
Really?
And I think it was Canada is apparently very good at their labeling and things like that, but I was blown away by that. But yeah, everywhere I go, I'm going to Boston in 2 weeks. They have a bunch of great gluten-free restaurants.
Right.
They have this Michelin chef that opened this bakery that I'm excited to go to. So,
because you can't eat bread.
Yeah.
Right? And gluten-free bread still to this date. I mean, we could probably handpick, you and I, 2 or 3 breads that are, if you're a big bread person, and I am, as pasta, that are virtually edible, barely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like eating cardboard.
There are a few out there now that are making their way through, but the early ones, especially like when I first started, the piece of bread was this big, and I would say it was actually half of that because you got to account for all the holes in it.
Yeah, and it was not fun.
Yeah.
But also, so I've also noticed if you travel around the world, look, as you described, it's very clear now that other countries are way more protective, FDA approval and all things that are actually illegal. In Europe, we're eating here like there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Mm-hmm. And I think we got to go back before I wrap it up, is that everything in our body, our mental health, our physical health, our overall well-being comes from the belly, right? And if your belly's wrong, you are wrong, and it will affect your whole day and affect everything. And it's in fact created syndromes and disease, and it's kind of craziness. So this is not just a story about food; it's really a story about wellness, which is our key, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the key to a long life. It's the key to a happy life, And look, we grow and we engage around food, I mean, for me, and so I grew up I was trained as a chef when I was 13, 14, and 15.
You've done it all.
I have done it all. And I had a godmother who lived in France, and I used to go and hang out with her, and she would teach me how to cook. And she was one of these, it was before food was what we know of as food, but in France, it's always been something special. And she was the kind of person, she could open the fridge and just make an amazing meal out of whatever was in the fridge. It was not like you had to shop. It was like this. It was they even made TV shows about that. Guys who could just come into your house and create some masterpiece out of whatever was there.
That's like all those shows. They give them like 5 ingredients, and then the person's like, I'm gonna make a mole. I was like, I wouldn't have thought of that. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. So that's exciting. So that was a big part, and it's a big part of socializing, and it's a big part of my life. I ended up getting into the food business. I came out. I made a hot sauce company, and so which did really well. And then I got sued. Long story. Anyway, I started it down here. It was called Johnny Wishbone's Secret Sauce. It was a great recipe. Hot sauce became I lived in Africa for a while, and so it was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And then I got sued for the name and was taken off the market, but that ended making me into. I started a company branding new startups in the food space. And then it was just as gluten-free started to be a big deal. And we came out with, I think the first product was a gluten-free chicken nugget. It was made by the guys, you know Blue Ribbon?
Yeah.
You know the restaurant? Okay. So the Blue Ribbon food chain, which started as one restaurant on Sullivan Street, and shout out to my friends at Blue Ribbon, they became a big sushi conglomerate.
Yeah, they're
huge.
And
the brothers who run the company started a company called Naked Nuggets, which was a grilled, not fried, gluten-free chicken nugget for kids.
Oh, wow,
Healthy.
I didn't know
we launched
about this.
It's not around anymore, unfortunately. We launched it at Fairway and Citarella and all these other places, and that was my first inroad into like, you can make really good things that are gluten-free. That was when gluten-free flour came out.
Yeah.
And this is a great tip. So look, the base of gluten is flour, right? And so there's a chef, I think his brother, there's Thomas Keller. Thomas Keller runs, I think, the French Laundry in LA. Okay. He has a brother who's named something Keller. He has a restaurant in Nantucket called Company of the Cauldron. He actually he's gluten-free, he's gluten celiac. And he made a flour. It's called 4x4 or cup.
Oh, I've had it.
You know that one?
Yeah.
It's the best gluten-free flour on the market. And that's his invention. That's his product. And it's really amazing. So, look, I'm so happy you got to come and hang out with us.
I am, too.
Let's talk about Europe for a minute also, because I think for you, that's going to be a fun trip.
Oh,
look,
I'm excited.
You're young. This is taking off for you, and I'm so glad that you have this, this platform. It's not like we all get a chance at this, and, it's what you make of your platform. I have a friend who has a food blog. It's just, his name is Ian, and it's called what is it called? I got to look it up. I'm a something. And he goes into restaurants and he eats everything there, and he has a really fun manner. And by the time he's done with his shoot, he's getting thrown out of every restaurant, right? It's kind of a funny thing, but he's now traveling around the world. He went to Japan. I mean, think about it. Wow. Food in culture, right? Japan, Europe, Eastern Europe.
Tokyo is like one of my biggest hit spots too. I want to go there. So
you got your bucket list.
Yeah.
All right. So check out New York City, but gluten-free. Bucket list going around the world to tell everybody about gluten-free, about celiac, and about fun food and how to hang out and enjoy it. Thank you, my dear.
Yeah, thank you.
A pleasure. Check out. And that's all I got to say about that. Boom.